today. So first, thanks Edward for the amazing presentation. I think his slides almost cover all the important details of this paper. So for me, it's a very interesting paper to read. So when I read it, so I was like, wow, like this, wow. But when you do prepare for the presentation, it's another story. So yeah, because a lot of things to cover, you need to make everything organized in sequence. It's very hard. So for my slides, just like picture. So my plan was to just demonstrate all the pictures in this paper to share some idea with you guys. So I don't think it's necessary right now. So my comment for this paper is that it's a very good paper. It's amazing. It's in the 1980s. Someone know how to actually picture the auditor's thinking process on the paper and show you and how the auditor actually think about how to evaluate a specific internal control process. And I think the most attractive part of this paper is the figure 4. I believe.
Yes.
For me, it's a lot of knowledge in this picture. It helped me, and I believe help you to understand how the protocol analysis works actually. Because in the past, before I entered this program, I have no idea how you can picture someone's mind or someone's thinking process. I think it's like a very future thing, you get some, electronic wire in your mind and a picture in your mind. But now we can find a methodology actually to numeric or picture someone's thinking process and actually model their mental process. Is very amazing. So this is the picture, figure 4. And so for me, my proposal for this course is about the visualization tool. So after reading this paper, I have a lot of idea in my mind. Like in the past, my idea is just interview with the maybe auditor about their opinions on different kinds of new generation visualization tool. But now I think maybe we can use this analysis methodology, the protocol analysis, to find a difference thinking process between the auditor who used the new generation tool with the auditor who didn't use, to find the difference inside the mental process, and to maybe we can get some conclusion about. This is my brief idea about this paper, and that's my comment.
So this is one of the sites that Edward mentioned, Simon. And if you have never heard of Simon, it's Herb Simon, Professor at Carnegie Mellon, behavioral professor in behavior science, but he was very big on cognitive modeling. He got a Nobel Prize of economics on his work. So he's a very, very famous guy. And this idea of think aloud modeling is actually came from Simon and Newell. And the idea is that you get a subject. What you really would like to do is put some probes in his brain and measure when he's thinking. And sounds a little bit extreme, but now people are moving wheelchairs with their brain without touching anything. So it is not as extreme as it was before, but it's still, we are pretty primitive to understand that. So his idea was that in order that you can't put your probes in it, you're going to have the person talk what they are doing, and then you kind of organize their thoughts and understand what kind of cognitive function they are realizing. Retrieve information, take a decision, create a mental model, whatever they do. And so that's like the idea of verbal protocol analysis. The classic paper is Mock and Mock.
Biggs?
Huh?
Biggs and Mock?
Yeah, Biggs and Mock, Steve Biggs and Ted Mock. But that's a basic paper. There have been a pile of these papers, and recently they haven't been really done a lot with. We did a study, and we continue doing the study for KPMG, which looks at the audit planning process, the way it's done at the beginning of the engagement. And basically what we did is we interviewed 5 auditors and asked them to talk about one engagement that they performed and describe how they thought about it. And the first auditor we interviewed basically just talked. And in most of the verbal protocol analysis, what you need to do is train the person while they are doing a task so they remember to talk. In this case, we didn't give them a task, just say, describe to us how you performed an audit. So he chose an audit, he would all recognize the name of the company, and he said, this is what we did, this is what we got worried, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we kind of, when we went to the second one, they came back to us with the following idea. Says, instead of we just interpreting, just talking about the audit, why don't we get the manager to talk to this partner, and let's assume that the manager is starting on the next year engagement of this particular audit. And he asks questions to the partner, and the partner, they negotiate the audit plan by looking at the risk of the engagement. We thought, well, we're kind of departing from verbal protocol analysis, but why not? So we did that way, and it was very good. Meaning, first, there was no prompting of continue talking, continue talking. Second, we didn't really give them, like they did here and Biggs and Mark did, we didn't give them an old-fashioned, traditional case, typically very unrealistic. The one that Biggs and Mark used was the old Slovak and Liechtenstein application that Bob Ashton had done, which was an internal control setting, etc. But a real audit engagement. And then we kind of did that with 4 partners, each one of them in different engagement, and each one of them with a manager that has not been in an engagement. And actually it turns out that was a pretty good proxy to what they actually do. Would you please ask her to close her computer? I already asked her. Can you please close your computer? And you too, close your computer. Okay. This is a PhD seminar. You don't have to close your computer. This is a PhD seminar. You don't go around doing your personal email in this PhD seminar. I looked around and just the 2 of you fooling around the computer. Everyone else had open computers and paying a lot of attention, thinking about it. And this is the moment you learn. You're reading papers, you need to clarify the paper. So let's try to learn about this experience. And so what we did is we captured these protocols. And this is Professor Brown. Did she talk about this in her lecture a little bit? Mm-hmm. So, and then you classify those uteruses. Now, we had some interesting technological challenges. The first thing was we would like to not having to transcribe the words. So we actually used Dragon for it, but didn't do very well. We had to, at the end, do a lot of coding, and a couple of people in this class last year had to do some of this coding. Okay. The second part of that is that we would actually like to create software that captures things out of Dragon and automatically codes it. And I think we can be done. Abdullah last year started looking at that, and this year I think Abdullah Rahman and Ahmad are having a look at doing that. Would be very good because it decreases the amount of the work. You saw how much work it was last year. But in addition to be a lot of work, it will create more consistency in the coding. But you have to have kind of verbal understanding. Yes?
That just brings back memories. I just have a question. I remember the biggest challenge, at least for me, was the classification scheme. It was very hard to choose,
put it in those
put
categories.
It in a category. I don't know if are those typical categories, or have they
yes.
Been changed, or?
Ted Mark was my PhD
yeah.
advisor, so I kind of somewhere in the career, I had this episode that I was seeing. He had his paper ejected in the jar, and he was having a major blowout with Nick Dopich, the editor. And he was keep saying, Dopich keeps saying, this is a sample of 4. How can I publish this? And then Mark said, no, this is 10,000 observations. The sample is 10,000. And to Nick's credit, he published a paper. And the paper is, for a while, had been the top cited paper in the literature, one of the top cited. Ashton and this one were the big papers being cited in that thing. Now, I think your comment is extremely perceptive. It's very difficult to classify, and that's one of the reasons why I want to create an automation process there. The other thing is that they don't allow you to do, and I think they should allow you to create categories. And then you should review what the categories were created and progressively increase the schemata or taxonomy or potential classifications. The method is fascinating, and I think we improved on the method by creating a task that is more realistic. Now, we haven't submitted it yet. It's going to be another 6 months or whatever we submitted. I will be very willing to share the paper, but this paper is going to have a lot of difficulty on the refereeing process because you dare to pick up an existing method and change it. Classic, developed by Herb Simon, so it's kind of nearly heretic to do that. But I think our method is better. And we just got confirmed maybe last week that we are continuing the project, but now we are going to try to design a decision support system that will basically decide and support on this audit planning process. And the reason I propose this to KPMG, and keep this between us, okay, is because I think that process is very, very loose, and people do whatever they want. And I think by carefully planning it and having a software supporting it, you can defend that you follow the process. So if there is a lawsuit, there is no optimal solution, but there is established way to do it, and the software helps you. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that I think in this audit planning process is very different from industry to industry. Typically what you hear in these protocols is things like, we went out and they bought some company in Europe, so this year the risks are different from last year, they have to look at external risk. And these kind of external contingencies of what happened to the business that year can be very, very different. So I'm not sure how good is going to be our development process. And the second thing is, maybe we'll need different kind of structure for different industry, and we'll need kind of, that's what I was asking you, the inference engine story. One part of it is linking things together and using rules that you capture. The other part of things is, what do you capture? And I bet you that if you compare the supermarket with a bank, you're going to have very, very different contingencies. So we still don't know what we're going to find. We promised a prototype, and we need to analyze more. And just to be very candid, I think we're going to have, the classifications are going to be, let's say, somewhat vague. They'll be difficult. But this is very interesting line of research. I tend to agree with Randy's comment, is digging into the head of the auditor is a difficult thing. But tell me an alternative. Okay, tell me another way to do this. You really want to, if you have an optimization method, you might want to use that. Might be not so realistic, but at least gives you an answer that is very precise. On the other hand, you capture knowledge of auditors, you have to do this knowledge representation thing, you have to do this classification of the pieces of knowledge, etc., etc., etc. So this is research, it's difficult. But if one might guess, we'll probably get a couple of papers out of this. And probably in good places, probably in the audit journal, because, or maybe the accounting review. That's what I think. And the other thing is, how about thinking about looking at how auditors look at this and creating protocols to look at data from process mining that would identify what the auditor is looking. So a two-module system, one system identifies the paths of the transactions, etc. The other module system represents what the auditor thinks and looks at those paths to find the things that auditors are looking for. Difficult, huh? Yeah. But it's very interesting. And you know, I always say a lot of the behavior research, don't quote me to Helen, is describing what the big auditor in the sky does. Okay, because there is no really very good methods to theoretically create very good assurance. So what you tend to do in behavior audit research is give situations to auditors and finding out what they did. And by the way, our way to finding out what they did is pretty weak, and that's why this kind of verbal protocol analysis was developed. But the verbal protocol analysis was developed in the 60s, early 70s, and now we have much better computers, much better machines. We have text analysis, we have voice recognition, and maybe it's time to kind of try it again in a different way. And so we will be trying it. And the other thing is, several of our PhD students are now very, very interested on this area, because now it converges. Kevin's text mining converges with some people wanting to do model representations. So it could be a great area of research. That's why I chose this paper to start. You know, this was actually Ray Mercer's dissertation in Minnesota, and then he went to Carnegie Mellon, and his advisor was Andy Bailey in Minnesota. There was a time that Minnesota had some of the best researchers on this area.